Recording. I hope I'm doing this right. It says recording, so I want to make sure I do this right because otherwise.
It is recording, according to
Good.
this.
Very good. Well, good evening, Donniel. I hope that you and your family are well and taking care of yourselves during this terrible crisis.
Thank you. They are, and I hope yours are the same.
So this week is an extraordinary week while we're all ensconced in our homes and isolated. Jewish world is celebrating, as it were, Yom HaAtzmaut. Here in America, we do everything online now, so everything's being done online. And I'm sure in Israel, interesting ways, new ways of celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut are being carried forward. How are people celebrating there?
They won't really. If they're going to follow the law, there's going to be a total curfew. You're only allowed to go out of your house 50 yards. And people will, just like the Seder, be celebrating with whoever they're living in their nuclear homes with, in their homes. So it'll be a very different Yom HaAtzmaut. Yom HaAtzmaut is a day of partying and trips and barbecues. It's a day of overflowing in Israel, of overflowing of everything, from music to alcohol to everything. It's almost a celebration saying we can. Here it is. It's like Israel. It's like it also comes after Yom HaZikaron, but it's really not a counter to Yom HaZikaron. It's a counter to 2,000 years of homelessness, and we're at home. And we're gonna barbecue. Like it doesn't matter. It's like now barbecuing is is obviously in Israel. Barbecuing competes with Chinese food as the essential Jewish food. But it's success because we're free. It's success because we're home, and we do it also together. It rivals Pesach as a family holiday. Huge numbers of family members come together. It's a very beautiful holiday, and this year it'll be different because our world and Israel's different, and it'll be different because we want to make sure that we're going to be okay after Yom HaAtzmaut. So that's the critical issue. Also, one other interesting thing is that it's also influenced by Ramadan, and very often. Yom HaAtzmaut is the private holiday of the Jews, very much so in Israel, even though hopefully one day it won't be. But how we're celebrating is trying to create a national standard for Jews and Arabs alike, that this year we're not breaking social distancing and curfew. And if Jews do it on Yom HaAtzmaut, then we could demand the same thing of the Arab community for 30 days on Ramadan, because the essential feature of a Ramadan is the family joining together to eat. And so there's an interesting dimension. We're all in this together, and we know that. There's Israelis. It's not Jews and Arabs right now, and if we have a shared culture of how we are going to celebrate or commemorate, what one we demand of one is what we're going to demand from the other. And so that's an interesting dimension that's added this year as well.
Wow. Now, you lived in America for many years as an educator, and you have a wonderful presence here as well. So you remember how Yom HaAtzmaut is celebrated here. It's a day. It's not nearly as boisterous as in Israel, but it's reflective in many ways of the history that came before. So help us understand this: the difference between the way Israelis experience Yom HaAtzmaut and American Jews experience Yom HaAtzmaut.
It's a huge question, and there's so many features to it. Let me just pick one, because there's also, it has to do also with the place of Judaism in the public sphere. What happens when you're sovereign and your holidays, whether it's Purim or Yom HaAtzmaut, are celebrated in the public sphere, and when you're a beloved minority, and it's just the fact. It's by nature that. If you want to be in a Jewish environment in North America, you have to go to a synagogue, a JCC, a federation. You have to go into somewhere. In Israel, the the country is the environment. And so there is that dramatic difference. But there's also, North American Jews have had an ambivalent relationship with Zionism from the beginning. Because for North American Jews, America's home. It is. So it's, you can love Israel, you care for Israel, you might even, some people at certain times might vote for a president on the basis of what's good for Israel or not. But at the end of the day, next year in Jerusalem is like most prayers. Jews pray it, but don't think about it. It's maybe it's one day, but not in my lifetime, and not for my kid who's going on a gap year, and not, excuse me. There's very clear guidelines. And so there's a difference when you're celebrating the independence of your home and when you're celebrating the independence of a place that you care for, you love, but in reality, it's not your home. America's home. And Israel, I love Israelis. I might be committed to them. I have loyalty. I might be inspired by it, but it's not my home. And therefore, that by nature is going to create a different celebration. There's also it's going to be less intense. There's going to be less immense joy. And it also won't be, it's not as natural. When you're in Israel, it's a natural, it's, hello, I am free. I am at home. I am sovereign. And that blessing is a huge blessing. For North American Jews, it has more of an intellectual perspective. It's less emotional. It's less guttural. It hits you less at the core. And that's not a criticism of North American Jews at all. There's no criticism implied. It just is. It's the fact of loving something that you know is not your home, as distinct from being in a place that is your home.
So let's take up the issue of sovereignty for just a moment, because you mentioned it, and it's something I know you've reflected on an awful lot. How has sovereignty, this is a very big question, but it's an important question for this moment. So how has sovereignty changed the Jewish people? And not just Israelis, but us as well in diaspora.
My father wrote about this a lot, and he was my teacher in this. Torah was never meant to be something that is studied in the Beit Midrash alone. It's something that's supposed to affect both your individual life and the public sphere. Now, outside of Israel, the rabbis teach us that derech eretz kadma Torah, that how you live your life takes precedence, and literally derech eretz comes before Torah, means derech eretz comes before the study of Torah. And that means that to be a Jew is not just to study Torah, but it's to live Torah. Now, throughout the world and throughout in places where we're a minority, there's a limit on what the parameters and scope of the way our Jewishness could enter into the public sphere. It has to do with power. It has to do with our size. It has to do with, outside of Israel, we're very careful about separation of state and religion, because if we're not, as a minority, we're the ones who are going to suffer the most from it. And so the old Enlightenment statement of be a Jew at home and a human being in public is an integral part of world Jewish life. Now, America is an example of a place that pushes it, because we're so much at home in America that we also feel to greater extent to bring our Jewishness in the public sphere, but it's with profound moderation. Let's remember, we're 2% of the United States. And then what happens when you are 85% of a place? Sovereignty expands the possibility of how Judaism is supposed to shape who we are. And it is both a gift and a great challenge. It is a gift where now we have to ask serious questions. What does Judaism teach us on social response, on responsibility, on rights versus responsibilities to a society. One of the central issues that we're facing now as a community and a world is, what do we owe each other? What do we owe our country? Not only what my rights are, but what are my obligations right now at this moment to my neighbors, to my country? These are just examples of ways in which in Israel, a Jewish tradition now says, okay, shape the marketplace. Judaism gets to shape a marketplace. The challenge is that we have a 3,000-year-old tradition. And with a 3,000-year-old tradition, there's a lot of things that are 3,000 years old. There's a lot of baggage that came to us that not all of it is healthy baggage. And it also surfaces in Israel. So Israel is the place where Jews, for good and bad, get to shape our destiny and to ask, what is the best that our tradition has to offer for how a society should look? And some of it is inspiring, some of it is challenging, some of it is depressing. But on Yom Ha'atzmaut, we're embracing that challenge. This is it, for good or bad. By becoming sovereign, this is the game. You can complain. This is it. What are you going to do? You're up at bat right now. You're not fetching about somebody else. Oh, why didn't he hit a home run, or she hit a home run? Why did they run fast? You're up at bat. Now play, and celebrating the possibility of us being able to play. And as you and I, we've spoken about this so often, and you teach this all, we have to play well. But when you're given the opportunity to play, you also have the opportunity to play well. When you're not given the opportunity to play, that option is not on the table. So failure is now an option, but so is success. And that's what we celebrate on Yom Ha'atzmaut.
So the great Zionist thinker, Max Nordau, who was also a psychotherapist, talked about what diaspora did to the inner life of the Jew. And he dreamed of a sovereign Judaism, not just as a public sphere, but as a psychological reality. So tell me about that for a moment. How do you think sovereignty has changed the inner life of Jews, both diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews?
Sovereignty gives us pride. Sovereignty gives us normalcy. For me, the biggest issue of sovereignty psychologically, personally, is the ability to, within whatever parameters, to be more of a master of my fate than I was before. The slavery, the essence of slavery is the complete loss of control to determine what you do, when you do, how you do, what's good for you, your needs, your interests, your values, your priorities. While we all know that there's only really a myth of sovereignty, because we're prisoners of our body, and we're prisoners of the environment, and we're prisoners of our surroundings. But even within that context, sovereignty says to you, you could be a master in whatever parameters that human being, you can push that. And there's a profound sense of dignity that comes with that. Profound sense of dignity that says, if I'm in danger, I can protect myself. It's a profound sense of dignity which says, look, even now in Corona, what do I want? How do I respond to society? What are my priorities? What do I think about? That I'm deciding, and that my elected officials, that I get to be a player. That dignity is a huge dimension. It's one of the greatest gifts of Israel. And I think that gift is a gift that Israelis in Israel feel, but I think it's changed the way Jews around the world see themselves. There's a dimension of I've arrived. I am a player in the world arena. And with that dignity, I think Jewish identity has been transformed. So that psychological dimension is a very, very big dimension. I think there's another part, which is also both this is a real complex one. I think it really came together in '67, where with Israel, we're part of a winning team. Jews, why did we have to sing Dayenu? Like, if you think about it a second, like, it's such a crazy song, right? Like, it's an insane song. God, if you didn't only took us out of Egypt and you didn't split the sea, it would have been enough? Really? Really? Or if you had split the sea, but you didn't feed us and he would have died in the desert, or we would have died in the desert and not gotten to the land of Israel. It's an insane song. It doesn't make sense. But why do we have to sing it? Because that's basically Jewish history. Jewish history. We were lucky. Like, so Pesach, we tell the whole story. But most of Jewish history, we get one. We're taken out of the land, but then we die. We have, Hanukkah, we celebrate. What was the big celebration? What, 2 years of independence? That was it. So we're making of it a great, this great moment. What are we celebrating? What do we have? What do we have? And so much of our existence is about, has been about making do even though we've lost. This chosen people have walked through history losing. And so we celebrated the fact that even though we lost so bad for so long, we're still persevering, so that somehow to continue to persevere becomes our great victory. With Israel, we actually won. It's not just the power to determine your destiny, but it's also the power to win, and we've won. And the success of Israel is exhilarating. Part of the challenge, and people in different spectrums of the political map have very different feelings about that, is whether we're still winning. Again, are we the nachas machine? It's like when you're winning, it's a drug. I want to keep on winning. Israel is supposed to make me feel good. Israel is supposed to show me how, listen, I am the victor. I am the first Jew in history for the last 2,000 years. I could actually say I won. Maybe David won, but we still haven't found any evidence that David existed. That he had, from how big was he? Was this a huge, or was this some little, was he the mega king of a hill? We don't even know how big David was, but we won. And that's intoxicating, but it could also be addictive. And what happens when a real country is not going to win all the time? So Startup Nation, and then let me tell you a little bit more about Startup Nation. But part of the discussion, or the so-called debate between, is Israel Startup Nation, or do we talk about the occupation, is to what extent does Israel continue to provide for me the sense of victory and pride, psychological, wherever I am? And can I handle an Israel that doesn't make me feel as good all the time? And so that is another, those are some of the psychological dimensions of Israel's impact, both for the good and for the bad.
So that the American Jewish community is deeply divided, and it's partly on generational lines. But the divide, I think, it goes along these lines. That for part of the community, Israel is always right, and for part of the community, Israel is always wrong. For part of the community, Israel is its power is worshipped, and for part of its community, its power is resented. For part of the community, you never criticize Israel, because any criticism added to the atmosphere will somehow jeopardize, contribute to its vulnerability and jeopardize its existence. And for the other side, it has betrayed the Jewish dream of justice. And there's very little dialogue between the two sides.
I think it goes back to the addiction of post '67, and for some people, I can't handle in Israel, or let's say almost everybody can't handle in Israel that doesn't make them feel proud. So one group says, I'm only going to tell the narrative that tells me that I'm proud. And the other one says, if you're not making me proud, what do I need you for? The middle path is, and it's an interesting question. For many people, can you develop a relationship with Israel which is built on celebrating its successes, and also criticizing it, precisely as not as an aspect of leaving a relationship, but as an expression of your relationship. And unfortunately, what happens when things become polarized, we become caricatures that the others, as the way the other one caricaturizes us. It becomes as if you see me this way, so all I want to talk, that's it. But who doesn't know that Israel doesn't do something wrong? Who doesn't know that every country doesn't do? Who doesn't know that Israel doesn't have great successes? Like it's everybody knows, but we become polarized by I'm the opposite of you, and so one wants to continue the victory, and therefore can only talk about the success. But what is that a real relationship? When the over idealization is one of the greatest symptoms of alienation. Could you love me for who I am? I don't need this over idealization. Look at Israelis. Which Israeli over idealizes? Unless you're a politician you're basically campaigning all the time. But which Israeli doesn't know that together with the phenomenal gifts of Israel have also come ongoing failures all the time? Every Israeli is an expert in everything that Israel does wrong. But outside of Israel, I need that victory. And the other ones, it's just the disappointment is too great. The model has to be the Entebbe model, the moral, perfect rescuer of. It's just not going to work that way. Not when you get into the muddled issues of Gaza and Judea and Samaria and state and religion. And how do you build a state where Judaism doesn't unite us, but it divides us? How do you build a state with two national groups as your citizen, and one of those as citizens, and one of those national groups has a shared nationality with somebody who at present doesn't want to make peace with you? All of the above. It's an impossible. It's not going to be this constant victorious Entebbe, which we can make into a little film. So we want to go from Exodus to Cast the Giant's Shadow to Entebbe, but life is just not going to. And I think part of the discourse that you're mentioning is that we want a movie. And if I don't have that, we all want that movie. So one says we still have it, and I'm going to keep on telling you. I'm going to go to a conference, and I'm going to tell you from morning to night. I'm going to start listing. Nothing is better. Nothing is better. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best. The other one says that we're not the best, and so I don't have anything to do with you. Maybe this Yom Ha'atzmaut, in the midst of a broken world, we could accept shatteredness. The rabbis speak about how in the ark, they not only put the complete tablets, they also kept the broken tablets. Yes, we have to live with, and we're all broken. And Israel is also broken. It's both. It's broken. They're both there. And I wish for American Jews some of the complexity of relationships that Jews in Israel have towards Israel. If North American Jews could have a loving relationship with Israel the way Israelis do, it would be so much healthier. There's nobody in Israel which doesn't celebrate some of its successes. Okay, there's a very small fault. And there's nobody in Israel who doesn't know that we also fail. And they're not incongruent, because they're not incongruent in any relationship with any real thing.
So it occurs to me that you sit in a very interesting place, because you are completely Israeli, conversant with the inner life of Israeli culture. And at the same time, you're conversant with our culture, with American Jewish culture, with diaspora Jewish culture. And in particular, not just conversant with the culture, but with its variety. Because one of the things that I so cherish about sitting in the Institute is that every day I would study with rabbis and scholars from different movements and different aspects of my community, many of whom live within 5 minutes of me, but I never got to sit and really be with. Only at a table at the Hartman Institute that I get to really learn text with Orthodox scholars and Reform scholars and scholars of renewal cultures. And so help me understand from the wonderful perspective which you enjoy. When you look at world Jewry, particularly American Jewry, Our narrative has always been the disappearing Jewish people, the vanishing American Jew. Now we're entering our 6th generation of settlement in North America, and we're still vanishing, thank you. And there's a tremendous pessimism. It's very good for fundraising, because if it's pessimistic, you better take out your checkbook, because you're the last bastion between emergency and and prosperity. But when you look at diaspora Jewry and travels and your conversations, from your perspective, where are we? What are we doing right, and what are we doing wrong? And what's the one thing, if you could say one thing to America's Jews tonight, what would you want us to hear?
So first of all, it's very hard to speak about the dying American Judaism when I'm speaking with you.
Yeah.
Or it's, if how vibrant is the Jewish life that you create, and while you are special, there are a lot of special congregations all across America.
Yeah.
Jewish life is far from over in North America. One of the things, and this connects to my Zionism. You can't be a Zionist unless you're an optimist. Listen, I want to, what was it? To paraphrase Sharansky, where he speaks about the optimism, you have to be insane to have actually engaged in this enterprise at this time. And there is this sense of hopefulness, of tikva, of looking at problems and saying, I know what the reality is, but I don't live in a determinist universe. I'm not determined by forces around me. That's what Zionism is not. Israel, I shape my destiny. I am not a victim. So I would say to Americans, don't see yourself as a victim. You're not a victim. So why should we be? You're not a victim politically. You're not a victim economically. Why should you accept victimization in your narrative of Jewish identity in America? Doesn't mean it's not simple. There are challenges. It's true. There are things we didn't imagine. We have multiple identities. We have blended families. We have profound disagreements. There's a lot of challenges. It's true. One of the greatest challenges of America is that it loves us so much. We do much better when people hate us. Then our identity is strong. I'm not tempted. I know who I am. I wake up in the morning, and the strength of my identity is not dependent on my commitment, but it's dependent on the other person's commitment to hate me. That's a very nice environment. America, thank God, doesn't have that environment. So now we actually have to choose to be Jewish. So some people are walking around and saying, oh, Yvette, we have to choose. They're not going to choose. We're the last ones to choose. What do we have to do? How do I do it? It's great. This is which Jew in Jewish history wouldn't die for that moment? So if we can choose, we have to do what you do. What do? You get up in the morning, and every single day you ask yourself, what can I do to be better? Now, you're not the wealthiest congregation in the world, and it's just an attitude. Get up and say, I am going to make this. The same Israeli instinct which moved to this barren land in the midst of one of the worst neighborhoods in the world with completely dysfunctional people, and we dried swamps. So it turns out we shouldn't have dried them. It turned out but that's just, we don't want that. The story's too good, so we love it, so we said. Turned out it created a lot of ecological problems. But whatever it might be, we did it. We made the Negev bloom, whatever story we want. Why do you accept the negative narrative? Everything has another side to it if you change your perspective. So we have Jews which are less committed. Great. What do you want to do to change that? Anything you want, you could do. Anything you want. We are Jews today who have enough resources to do anything we want. We might have we have a poverty of vision. We don't have a poverty of resources. If we change that and we allow ourselves to be inspired. Listen, right now, as you know and I know very well, the depth of what Judaism is about today is a product of the phenomenal spiritual, cultural, intellectual creativity of Israeli Jewry and American Jewry. It's happening. So we're just going to have to work a little harder. And the thing that I would say to, and again, let's look at the experience of Israel. For 70 years, 70, what is it, 75, what year is it going to be this year? Let's do the math. What is it? I can't do it. Corona's making my math go out. What is it, 70, whatever, 72 years. You don't go into the nation business unless you have time. It's not going to be a miracle. It takes a while. You don't deal with any crisis. Forget crisis. You don't deal with challenges by expecting these short-term answers. The American Jewish community is so serious about its institutional Jewish life. It's serious about its economic well-being, and it engages in long-term planning. It behooves us to do long-term planning about the future of how we build a serious Jewish identity. Get off of these short-term fixes. They're not going to happen. We know, everybody knows what creates a vibrant Jewish life. And it has to do with education, and it has to do with synagogues, it has to do with federations and camps and multiple forms of people being able to integrate their lives, multiple touch points. There's no single, we have to get serious. The problem is that I find very often people want deep, cheap, very simple solutions for very serious problems. And I think Israel teaches us the opposite. You have to be serious. You have to be serious. If you want to be in the peoplehood business, if you want to be in the nationhood business, you have to be serious. If you want to be in the peoplehood business, you have to get serious. American Jewry has all the potential to be one of the most remarkable Jewish communities in Jewish history, not just because we're loved, but because of the intellectual, creative energies that it's producing. But we're going to have to get serious. And instead, we look for these patches, a 10-day trip to solve Jewish identity, another little gimmick here, another little gimmick. It's not about gimmicks, and it's about day in and day out producing excellence. And I would say to American Jews, believe in yourself. Im tirtzu enzo agada. Let's pull out all the Zionism today. If you wish it, it's not a myth. So wish it, stop it. You have everything you need. You have everything you need. Turn it around. And then this could be a remarkable time.
Let me ask you for one last question. So we haven't talked about the crisis we're going through, but one of the features of the crisis is that we are all sort of isolated, which means that if we're going to be Jewish, it's going to be on an individual basis. This morning I get up and I daven a minyan, but through a computer. But fundamentally, I'm standing by myself in my talis and davening, and my tefillin and my davening. And if I'm learning individually. So you're a great, great teacher of Torah. You're my favorite teacher of Torah.
Thank you.
Tell me, seriously, tell me what I should be doing. Tell me how I can individually now, without having a teacher in front of me, without having a class around me, without going to the shul or going to the JCC. What can I do now to grow as a Jew here in my own home, on my own, stuck inside? What do I do, Donnie?
First, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. It's okay if in the larger scheme of history, there's 3-4 months where we treaded water. It's okay. Deal with your needs, but don't make demands on yourself.
You're talking to Jews, remember. These are Jews.
Exactly. I was like, it's okay. It's okay. This is not going to be, I know, for me, there's a certain type of music that touches my soul when I daven. And I need that music. Without it, I don't have it within me. My religious soul is not rich enough to be an engine unto itself. It's just, it's the nature. Person has to know who they are. It is. And there's a lot of people who can't study without a good chavruta. without a good partner. And that's right now, in general, I believe that if we could function, we have to teach people that maybe this is the day, maybe now is the dayenu is the first thing I would, but in reverse. If you could get up in the morning and get dressed, dayenu. If when you get up in the morning, you're decent to the people around you and you don't hold the fight of yesterday tomorrow, because you have nowhere else to go. Therapists used to speak about the fact that you never have a serious conversation in a car. Because that's the most abusive place to have an argument, because you can't leave. Now you can't leave. So if you could just get and start the next day again, dayenu. If you could find a moment or two of where you elevate, dayenu. And whatever that might be through yourself, through your own individual moments, and it might be by connecting. I think that's the way we function. If this is going to be a new normal for us for the long term, we will develop new skill sets. We already have, to some degree. Our skill sets are improving every month, but we're still social animals, and we hope to return to be able to be that. If it changes, the old joke about the Jewish rabbi who hears that in 30 days the world's going to be flooded. He comes back to the community and says, "Okay, we have 30 days to learn how to breathe underwater." That's we know what to do. Well, we will adjust, but right now this is not normal. So no, I would say don't treat it as normal. Don't. And it's the term of a mikdash ma'at. This was the deep dayenu and diaspora Torah, that I don't need to live in a redeemed world to be thankful. Again, one of my father's favorite teachings, which has been very important in my life, was the teaching when the angels go to God and say to God, why are you so biased towards the Jews, in favor of the Jews? So whether that was empirically correct or not, it doesn't matter. But on the page of Talmud, it was correct. God, you're supposed to be a God of justice, and you're so nice to the Jews. How could that be? And God answers and says, I commanded them that when they are full, they should give thanks. Only when you eat and you're full are you supposed to say grace after meals. And God says, but they chose that even when they eat the equivalent of an olive or an egg, they give thanks to me. How do I not show favor on such a people? At this moment, how do we get excited by an olive and an egg? By little joys, by little things. Everybody wants to be with you, but now they have you as a television personality. They have a new rabbi. They have new experiences. One of the nice things is we're also learning new things. There's new ways for us to reach peak moments, which we never thought before. While we're more alone, more people are also connecting to other people. More people are attending virtual synagogues than in person. So there's additions. Count every blessing. But most important, and I said this to all my workers. Right now, the job of rabbis, the job of educators, is not to challenge, but to comfort. And in the midst of comforting, to elevate. But to do it with a lot of seichel. This is not going to be the peak of our individual lives. Maybe humanity will emerge from this and learn a lot of things. And maybe we will see tremendous growth. That's possible. But that will come after. There's huge potential. We could either go back to life as it always was, or we could ask ourselves, what are some of the significant moral, intellectual, spiritual lessons and challenges that we've encountered, and how can we advance? But right now, you got up in the morning, you had 10 minutes of something, you did that. You're maintaining your humanity in the midst of fear, in the midst of uncertainty. As a person, you're at home because you believe that you shall love your neighbor as yourself, and you realize that responsibility to society doesn't start with government, but it starts with how you wash your hands or whether you wear a mask. These are holy things. These aren't little things. That you're staying separate from people who you love, not just because you love them, but because you know Kant says, act in such a way that you're willing for your behavior to be universalizable. You know that how each individual acts is going to have ripple effect. These are great moments. I don't want to use the word heroism because these are moments of humanity. Give yourself credit for your humanity and save your energy because soon we're going to be facing great questions about what we want to do with the rest of our lives, with the rest of our world, with the rest of our countries, and what type of universe we want to build and where we want to go. And so we need that strength to be able to do great things.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Let's finish. I want to finish with a commercial, actually, because this summer Nina and I were very anxious to come and return to the Institute and learn, but that's not going to be possible now. As well, hundreds of others would be coming this summer to learn with you. But so this summer, instead, we actually have the potential of involving many more thousands to come, because we'll be doing this online. So tell me just, b'kitsur, what are we learning this summer, and how can I get in touch with you?
You're going to hear from us very shortly. Where the theme is going to be Together, Apart, and Alone. The future of Jewish community in the age of Corona, in which we're going to learn now, as distinct from being in larger groups. We're going to create much as this medium allows, much more variety, smaller classes, so there could be more interpersonal discourse. People could watch it live. People will be able to watch it on video. Over the next 3-4 weeks, we are working really very hard now to put together a unique experience. And come join for however much you want. Dayenu.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to wish you and your family a very good Yom Ha'atzmaut, and be healthy and be strong. And we'll see you this summer online.
Thank you, and be well.